Hello, everyone. My name is Hrayr Mankarian. As the Mentorship Program Director, alongside Ellen Semerjan, who spearheads the Young Armenian Poets Awards, we want to welcome you to International Armenian Literary Alliance's second annual Mentorship Program's Emerging Writers Showcase and the Young Armenian Poets Awards. Nearly 3 years ago, when Olivia Katranjian, the founder and president of IALA, and I first discussed about the possibility of a mentorship program for Armenian writers, we were unsure if we could generate enough interest from reputable mentors and potential mentees to run a summer program. Our uncertainty seemed unfounded. Within 2 summer sessions, we are proud to say our gracious mentors have had the opportunity to guide globally 15 talented mentees. Today, you will get to know 4 of them. Calling them emerging voices would be misleading because these talented individuals are very active in the literary world. Keep these names in mind. Look for them in publications, support them, because our rich literary tradition needs new bearers of the torch. Particularly now, when our homeland, Hayastan, is surrounded by active aggressors whose primary agenda is to annex a sovereign nation. Our writers must make noise when the news agencies of the world remain silent. I don't want to prolong the introductory segment of our showcase, but we couldn't have mentees if we did not have a stellar, committed group of mentors. We are humbled by their willingness to commit to guide our group. Our mentors are accomplished writers, teachers, and professionals. It was quite noble of them to provide valuable time in the months of July and August and mentor our emerging writers. Dear mentors, you have made all the difference in the creative lives of our mentees with your care and guidance. Finally, none of these programs would be possible without the supportive members of IALA. If you would like to become a member, please do so by visiting our website. Also, we do appreciate any amount of donations to our nonprofit organization. Your monetary assistance will make our organization thrive and establish future literary programs. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first mentor, Ida Zelian, who was not here, so Olivia will do the introduction. Olivia?
Olivia, you're on mute.
Okay. Sorry about that. Ida Zalelion is a first-generation Armenian American educator, writer, and storyteller from Queens, New York. Her fiction explores the depths of love and family relationships, culture, and the connections between characters that transcend time and circumstance. Her first novel, The Hollowing Moon, was one of the top 3 finalists in the Anderbo Novel Contest. The sequel, The Legacy of Lost Things, was published in 2015 and was the recipient of the Zalelion Literary Award. Ida has been featured on NPR, the Huffington Post, Kirkus Reviews, Poets and Writers, and various reading series throughout Queens and Manhattan. Her short story collection, These Hills Were Meant for You, was shortlisted for the 2018 Catherine Ann Porter Award. She is also coming out with a book next year. Her novel, All the Ways We Lied, is in fact 2024, is slated for release in 2024. And we will surely be celebrating that here. Ida, unfortunately, could not be here today, so she wanted me to read a short introduction about her mentee, Anna. Ida says, it was a true pleasure working with Anna this summer. The short stories we worked on together reflect a raw authenticity, a glimpse of gender roles in Armenia that is eye-opening and startling. As a writer, she has already established a unique writing style, unsentimental, dry, and ironic, which allows the reader to gather the weight of her character's circumstances. Anna is an ambitious writer and eager to improve her writing. We started the program during the end of her pregnancy, and she persevered with all her revisions, even after giving birth to her lovely daughter. Anna, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there to introduce you, but know that I am so proud of how much work you've put into your writing. I wish you the best of luck and can't wait to read more of your work. Without further ado, Anna Matevosyan.
Hello. I will cry now. the beautiful words that Aida said about me. Shall I start? I'm going to, we worked on 2 stories together with Aida in this summer, as I was also saying last time when we were having our meet and greet session. And I was mentioning that both of the stories were concentrated on the topic of selective abortion in Armenia, on the issue of selective abortion in Armenia. One of the stories is going to be part of the short story collection that I'm working on right now, but the other one is not. And I am going to read an extract from the story that's not going to be part of the short story collection. I'm going to try publishing it, in a literary magazine, for a while. So I'm just trying to put the finishing touches to the story. And if you're okay, I can start right now. So the story is called Your Mother Never Mailed That Letter. And so I'm starting. Your mother opens the front door and forces her puny and emaciated self forward into the house. Her own mother, your grandmother, your tata, tetchy and impatient by now, begins her scolding as soon as she has her daughter's presence at her disposal. It's 5:45 evening and you're still out with him. Your father is not home. I would go and thank God if I were you. What should I thank God for? Asks your mother, as if she were an alien in this story. Thank him because you have a lover and your father hasn't killed you yet. Tata literally barks back. Your mother averts her gaze and blushes because, for God's sake, this is not true. And yet she knows no one in the village will give this any other name. Your mother seems to be a daydreamer in everyone's eyes. She knows the neighborhood and their relatives have labeled her as a girl with a lover because she's dating a boy at the age of 17. Tigran, her classmate. Your mother feels she's in love with Tigran because she should be in love like a typical girl at 17, and because Tigran is popular at school and he's not hiding it. He's not hiding having a crush on your mother. Tigran's piercing green eyes have always been the object of admiration among other girls from school, but no one really knows why he chose to start dating your mother right before graduation. He just did. But they are not lovers. Being lovers is different. They are just dating, your mother says to herself. She's a girl of principles against all gossip. Even innocent dating, though, is different in these regions of Armenia. Absolutely not like the date you might go on someday. Here, couples do not debate over eating sushi or quietly sipping a cup of coffee in a remote corner of a lounge cafe. Tigran and your mother wouldn't afford it either, if you want to know. Because this God-forsaken village doesn't have a single cafe, Tigran says to your mother with a note in his voice that sounds like the irritation of a man of honor. But he doesn't add that he has no pocket money to take your mother to a cafe, even if the village had one. They talk. No one knows what they talk about. People just see those two together frequently enough to open the sack of gossip. Near the school gate, on their way home from school, and right behind the house where your mother lives with her siblings and grandparents. When they are apart, Tigran calls your mother on their home phone. This usually provokes the wrath of your tata, but Tigran tries to call before 8 p.m. Otherwise, your grandfather will be back home from work, and your mother and your tata will have problems. That's what this dating is about, tasteless and odorless, Yet the gossipers have a lot of colors to pepper it with. And soon it finishes. In winter, Tigran joins the army and his family makes an abrupt decision of moving to town. Thus, leaving your mother's family, especially your tata, distressed, ill at ease, on the verge of severe nervous breakdown. No, they don't move to Gyumri, the center of Shirak province, but to a small town. Still, a town. He never planned to marry you, girl. Get real, your tata spits out. She's shouting so mad, so desperate. Your mother thinks now that loose tooth of hers will come flying onto her face. His mother will now find him a town girl in no time. That is what she will do. And you blackened our name and dragged us all into this mud. We are now disgraced. We are disgraced, your mother writes to Tigran in her next letter. They will want me to wed the first potential husband to shut everyone's mouth. I'm disgraced because we're all disgraced here. Please do something. She mails the letter and waits. But surprising as it is, Tigran acts decent. He calls his parents and shouts through the phone because the connection is bad. Go and put a ring on that girl's finger. Do not leave her there disgraced. And his parents consent. Tigran is 20 upon returning from the army, and he's 21 by the time his parents realize they can't scrape together enough money for a big wedding for their son. Because everyone has to be invited, the aunts and uncles and their spouses, distant relatives and neighbors who call themselves relatives. A small wedding won't do. A modest ceremony in the Church of Seven Sorrows in Gyumri won't do either. A mere romantic dinner for the newlyweds will be a waste of money because no chance to show off. So they just decide to pack your mother's suitcases and ship them together with her to her new home. So many years have passed and people just don't see us apart anymore. Tigran says several days later. He sits on an armchair, smoking and blowing the smoke right in the room where they will sleep in a few hours. I might not have even married you, but this is not the case. A pang of sadness stings your mother at heart on that day, but at night she's lighthearted and serene as she tiptoes to bed through the silence reigning at home. Because she mentally regards your tata, because after all, she's sleeping peacefully now. The marital life turns into a flow of anticipated events in the beginning. Early mornings. A daughter-in-law is to get up earliest to see her husband leave for work well-fed, clean-clothed. The mother-in-law puts it straight. Why am I up in the kitchen at 7:30 in the morning? Mother wants to ask, but she recalls your tata's face immediately, because why ask? And he ignores breakfast. Right? Unless his freshness is at least 3 days old, and he ignores breakfast, preferring sugarless black coffee and a cigarette instead. It's disrespectful of a goodly daughter-in-law to sleep longer than her mother-in-law, says Tigran's mother, examining the curtains in the living room, as if she sees them for the first time. Every 2 or 3 days, Tigran's mother takes your mother to Auntie Lala's tiny, barely illuminated and stuffy grocery store, where Auntie Lala's TV set occupies more space than the goods she sells, and is always on, showing soap operas. This shop is visible from everyone's window, and Tigran's mother hopes their appearance around the shop will later add a few drops of gossip into everyone's coffee. She knows your mother will be the subject as a new bride, but your mother is her daughter-in-law, so she will too, and it is so satisfying to know. Every evening, your mother barely contains her disgust in the bathroom. This after she discovers that her in-laws use the same sponge in the shower. Once she realizes Tigran has used hers, she hides it during the day. She is forced to watch the news every evening, even though she has no interest in politics whatsoever. But she has no choice. No one has a choice, in fact. Tigran's father doesn't let anyone change the channel. When your mother gets pregnant, it's a big joy for the household. Everyone says, it will be a boy, and later we will also have a girl, just like it happened in case of Tigran and his sister. 9 months later, your sister, baby Diana, and not a boy, blesses everyone with her birth, and everything changes. Everyone's excitement kind of melts away. Tigran suddenly launches an unexpected sanctimonious preach and describes your mother, why exactly it is essential for a man to be a breadwinner. As if before it wasn't. Your mother thinks, but stays silent. He doesn't wait for your mother to agree or disagree with all this, because initially too, the plan wasn't to win her approval. It was for letting her know that she would from now sign up to the list of wives doomed to live with their in-laws, because he, Tigran, is moving to Russia. No need to mention which city exactly. Tigran just waits until Diana turns 4 months old, and in early spring, while the sidewalks and the trees in their insignificant town are still blanketed with an icy layer of snow, and while stray dogs are so hungry at night and cold at night, their howling could be confused with that of wolves, he takes his suitcase and an ugly duffel bag downstairs and hops into a car full of other men who have chosen a similar destination. Tigran leaves for Russia in a car because he has no money to buy an airplane ticket. This much I had planned to read. If you want, I can continue, but I guess we're short of time. So if it's okay, I mean.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. That was very interesting and moving listening to you. I would like to continue with our next mentor. I would like to introduce our next mentor. Next mentor is Dr. Tamar Am Boyajian, who is a California-born Western Armenian poet, translator, and associate professor of medieval Mediterranean literature, poetry, and translation. Her work is experimental, visual, intertextual, intercultural, queer, and explores themes around movement, subjectivity, symbols, and transmission. Drawing from the threats imposed on endangered languages such as her native tongue, Western Armenian. Boyajian is the editor-in-chief of the Journal of the Society of Armenian Studies. Her writing credits include Inch Vore Ane, It Is What It Is, The Vineyard of Mirrors on Armenian and Afrofuturism, forthcoming in 2022. Mayra Hayachun, Armenian Matriarchy, forthcoming in 2023. She has also edited 2 volumes of translations of contemporary Armenian literature into English. She is currently working on a novel in Western Armenian and a dual language edited series on contemporary women poets in the world composing in Western Armenian today with Dr. Kaizakyan and Dr. Rachel Goshkarian. Tamar's mentee is Hrayr Varaz. Tamar, if you don't mind speaking on behalf of your mentee. Or introduce your mentee. You need to unmute yourself.
Cyrus, I believe you have to unmute her. We have some security protocols up.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm so happy to be part of this mentorship community and this writing community. And I, with great honor, present Hrayr. Hrayr Varaz identifies as a Western Armenianist, San Francisco-based Twitter poet, linguist, flower photographer, empath, Sioux worker, emojier, dance monger, a queer community flag bearer. And I'm sure Hrayr will talk more about his work, but in our relationship and what stood out to me about the uniqueness of Hrayr's work in Western Armenian, Eastern Armenian, English, Twitter poem emoji, right, is really indicative of where his intellectual kind of background comes from, which is that he's a doctor and a linguist, right? And he has a PhD in linguistics. So in many ways, Hrayr approaches language as a space of queering, and how that becomes an interrogation between the written and the spoken and the sound, right? So much of Hrayr's work is about how we approach language, how that looks, how that sounds, right? And the expectations of that, and what happens when we confront that and our expectations are different than kind of traditional forms in which language appears. So he sees language phonetically, right, colloquially, and without standardized spelling. And a lot of his work reminds me of, as a medievalist, of the pre-modern way in which we think of language, right? Because language, and like when we wrote language from the spoken, the lyrical form, to the written, to down on paper or parchment or whatever, standardized spelling was actually not common in the pre-modern world. And when I think about the vernacular Middle Armenian world, right, that incorporated so much of the transcultural elements of Turkish and Persian and Arabic, and a form that was very much rejected by the church and Kurapad, that lyrical form, right, and that poetic form that initially was not standardized became the way of expression of the people. So these kind of intersections are very much what Hrayr is working in and thinking about, not just language today, but a trajectory of language, right, in Armenian, and how that comes to create a standardization that we could now deconstruct and kind of reconstruct today as modern speakers. And this is particularly interesting as we think of Western Armenian, which UNESCO has labeled as, definitely endangered, or, danger 1 category. And so with that, I think I'll let Hrayr kind of speak for himself and let his work speak for himself by reading to us some of the stuff that he's doing. And I should say that his first book, his Jiv Jivner Twitter poem book, just got released, right, Hrayr, by Abril. And so you could find that over at Abril too, if you're interested. And I don't know if he's planning on publishing it online, but I'll let him say more about that.
Thank you, Tamar. And thank you, Yalla. Yeah, that was amazing, Tamar. Thank you. Yeah, it was a great joy working with Tamar. Great to connect on depths. And I'm going to read 5 pairs of poems from the second volume that I'm planning to print next year. So the first volume is self-published, and I printed it through Abril, so you could find it there. Yeah. Let me share my screen. Okay. So these are pairs of poems, and I'm first going to read the English and then the Armenian. Okay. Community church is effing important, where bonds strengthen, marriage, funeral, baptism, Sunday, and holidays. They weave more. Beltane, Pride, Folsom, Dory, Easter, Christmas, New Year's. Dance, scream, share freely. Congrats, one by one. Re-deepen the depths of the close. Smiles and cries, bond. Life and light, picks and cheers, queer effin armos. Համայնքի եկեղեցին կարևոր է, դեղ ուր գաբեր գզորանան, բսակ թաղում գնում կիրագի, դոներնա գհյուսեն ավելի, Beltane, Hubbard, Folsom, Dory, Zadig, Gavant, Nordari, Barel, Boral, Arad, Pajnel, Irar, Megmek, Shnorhavorel, Moder, Chorer, Vera Modetsnel, Jbidu Latsov, Gabel, Gyankuluis, Seprel, Negarner, Genatsner, Daror Hayer. Come well, lovely moon, comforting trace of sun, light in our darkness, queens, crowned queens of our queer community, the crowned, crown draggers, drag queens, dragging crowners, crown and joy draggers, enjoy the language as is. It's yours, take it, dirty it, hashtag proud heroes, hope, light, life, giving full moon peacock. Parov եկար սիրուն լուսին, հանգստացնող հետք արևին, մութին լույս մեզի թակուհի, թակող մեր դարոր համայնքի, թակողները, թակ քաշողները, քաշող թակողները, քաշքշող թակողները, քաշքշող թակթկող քաշքշողները, լեզուն եղածին պես վայլե, քուգինը թե, ար աղդոդե, համայնքի հբարդ հերոսեն, հույս լույս գյանք տվող լիալուսին վարազ։ I give my energy to the queer. I want to take up space, occupy it, especially non-queer spaces. From my hairy shoulder to stank pits. Your cologne and my pit stink, what's the diff, you know? Drunkenly I oink. Sexual, butchual, bodily. Joys are what I chat about. Feel the flow. If you can, join. Venus, Crescent, Mars, Jupiter. Gudam ujes darorin. Guzem der kravel, der arnel. Manavant andaror derer. Mazod uses, hoda zanutes. Anushahudit yev anutahodis. Darperutune inchevor. Gides? Khamad em Varaz. Serain, Vorain, Marmunain. Hadrikneru masin ghosim. Hosanka iska. Girnas, Gabvir. Arusiag, Mahig, Harad, Lusuntak. Form connections. Learn to form connections. There are connections between those you know. Find, ease, lubricate. You know this and the other. Connect the two. Connect that too. This, that, and the O. The three together. Like I, you, they. Here, there, and yonder. Like this, that, there. You get devil. Be the devil. Mix, give, heat up. F them up. Bore. Gab hastade. Gab sorvir hastadel. Kitsadznerut mechev gabergan. Kadir. Türünsur. Sahunsur. Kides asyev an. Atal gabe. Gilla as at an. Yerek miasin. Inchbes yes tun an. Hos hot hon. Yev asank adank anank. Yev sa da na gilla sadana. Sadana yerir. Khadne. Dur, daktsur, kılhum varabidutsur, Varaz. The last one. It's clear when the flow's flowing. Come as you are, always. Cut the crap, sway right, left, bind and mix. Sometimes sit, consider your comfort. Hydrate, dance together, mirror stare. Nothing's just this or that. Height, gender, color, consent. Black hanky left pocket. Melting face. Clearly, I now love myself. Urach pride. Haitnie yerb hosanka hosigor. Yerir inchbes vores. Voyeve aden. Zurnastir ach tsach shajir. Gabvir kharnavir. Yet pemananastir. Hankistit nair. Chur khame. Bare. Hailinaye. Vochmek pan askam ade. Hasag ser queen ardonutun. Sev tashkinag tsach gerban. Sev sird halogyeres. Hastad, hastag, ima seres inzi. Happy Habard, LGBT. Thank you.
Շատ շնորհակալ եմ Hrayr,
Thank you, Shahir.
Tamar, Irabes. It was listening to you both. I'm very much motivated to write. Go back to my typewriter and start writing. I would like to introduce our next mentor. Taleen Topchian is the author of The Hitman Daughter, Agora Police Books, a gothic mystery which Library Journal describes as a fast-paced, haunting novel of survival. In addition to writing suspense novels, Topchian has published short fiction in Prism International, Dreamers Magazine, and Firewords Quarterly. She is a professor in the Faculty of Media and Creative Arts at Humber College. Currently, she lives in a 114-year-old haunted house. Caroline, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me part of this program. It was an absolute pleasure and honor to work with Tenny. And I'm so excited to introduce her to you today. She and I worked together on her novel, which for me was very poignant and had a very strong nostalgic feeling that I think is very relatable to many people who identify as diaspora, who have left a homeland. So that I think was very universally felt, and she had a very strong voice in her writing. So a little bit about her. She is a vegan and a plant-based lifestyle coach, and she has over 10 years of experience in the field of social media marketing. She also enjoys creative writing. She earned her BA in journalism from California State University, Northridge, and her MA in communication studies from San Francisco State University. Tenny loves spending time with her dog, Lucy, cooking, traveling, reading, and visiting animal sanctuaries. So today she'll be reading from her novel titled Thune. And this is a story of a disgruntled single mom who's laid off and must travel to Armenia for the first time with her estranged cousin to fulfill the wishes of her late grandmother and claim her inheritance. So without further ado, here's Tenny.
Thank you so much, Caroline. It's been wonderful working with you. And yeah, I'm just going to get started. So he finally spoke. Listen, Zabel, this is going to be difficult for me to say. He paused, looking down at the mahogany desk. You've been an invaluable assistant for the past decade, and I thank you. I'm closing up the firm. Today's going to be your last day. Peggy will see us through our final weeks. I hovered forward, breathing hard. The silence returned. Was I the last to find out? I wasn't exactly besties with anyone at work, but I would have thought someone would have clued me in to something major like this. It didn't quite feel real until Mr. Zelinger rose from his chair. He was speaking, but I couldn't hear. My mind was racing. How would I support Sophia? My savings was sad. Turns out raising a preteen by yourself wasn't cheap, especially one having a love affair with Sephora. A cold touch jolted me out of the chair. Zelinger, empty cardboard box in hand, motioned toward the door, then down the corridor to my desk. As I sat down examining my things, the photo of Sophia and I with Milo as a puppy in our yard, a portrait I drew of my grandma when I was still a rebellious teen, I realized I never allowed myself to get cozy here. I had learned early on in life never to get too comfortable with anything, be it place or person. Everything ends. The Eve cigarettes on the corner of my desk were staring me down. It was a daily battle as I tried to quit, for my health and for my kid. I would not be the victor today. I was okay with that. I swiftly grabbed the turquoise and white carton and headed toward the small patio across from me. Everything about lighting up felt amazing. From the feeling of the slim cigarette in my hand to the familiar click of the lighter and that first puff, the taste of menthol on my lips, my eyes closed as I exhaled. Now I have two things to keep from Sophia. The firm closing down was the last thing I expected. As the minutes passed, the shock began to wear off, but the anger crept in. I wasn't naive. I knew these firms wouldn't think twice about replacing workers or letting people go. But after all these years, the thought of starting over felt like climbing Everest. The clock crawled toward 5 p.m. as I returned inside and stared blankly at my computer. At least it was Friday. Sophia would be waiting for me, Milo, no doubt, napping by her side in all his fluffy glory. Someone from HR stopped by my desk to hand me some final paperwork. My last check would be mailed to me, he said. I walked down the pristine hallway one last time. succulent peeping out of the near-empty cardboard box I was holding. Dennis, the longtime custodian, was wiping down the counter in the lobby. Miss Safoy, I heard the news from Bridget. How are you feeling? He asked, head tilted to the side, eyes locked on mine. I'm fine, I said, escaping his gaze. At that, he gave me a familiar, doubtful expression. Feelings weren't my thing. All right, if you say so, I won't press. Just make sure to take care of yourself, Dennis said. Don't worry about me. I've been through worse days, man. I just want you to know you've made my time here so much better. Thanks for being real. Our embrace was short, but left me with a smile. Don't be a stranger, he said. I pushed open the double doors, heading toward the metro, the cacophony filling my ears. Definitely won't miss downtown. I glanced back at the building, wondering what its ornate facade had witnessed over the past century since it found its home near Pershing Square. Probably worse than this moment, though it didn't feel possible to me. The building had good bones, but had seen many changes over the years, including remodeled interiors and a rooftop bar. Sometimes a refresh does one good. The red line was late as usual. I waited on the platform near the last car, hoping it would be empty. As the train approached, I noticed a group of teenagers huddled together in the corner. I walked on, tapping the side of my phone until Stone Temple Pilots nearly deafened me. The song was halfway over when we arrived to Union Station. With my playlist on shuffle, I made it to the tunnel to the Metrolink trains. Passing by a family dressed head to toe in Dodger blue, ready for game day. I got onto the quiet car. Mr. Morton, who I'd seen every Friday for the past 5 years on my commute, was seated nearby, book open on his lap. The title, Wuthering Heights, peeking out. He had joined a book club with his granddaughter, which was the sweetest yet scariest thing. You never knew what book he would have next. I'll never forget seeing him holding a paperback of 50 Shades of Grey. Needless to say, we avoided eye contact that month. Good afternoon, Zabel, the 88-year-old man whispered. Hi, Mr. Morton. I see the girls have picked a classic for this month, I said to him with a smile. Ah, yes, they sure did. I'm just glad next month is my pick, he beamed. Wow, that is exciting, I said, adding with genuine curiosity. What book will you be reading? Well, I've decided to go with the 100-Year Walk. You must have heard of it, right? He said, hope in his voice. No, I guess I haven't kept up with the latest releases, I said. Oh, Zabel, you must read this one. It's important for you to know the history of your people. You know, our people are connected through tragedy, but we're also resilient. It's tough for me to relive those memories, but important not to forget, Mr. Morton said. I'll be sure to look it up, I said, sinking deeper into the faded cloth seat, my head leaning away from my body aches. I rubbed my gold necklace, our family crest etched on the front. Grandma had gifted it to me long ago. What had their journey been like, I wondered. Mr. Morton was a young boy when he experienced the Holocaust. We didn't talk about it too much, but I knew he had seen some of the most horrendous things that humans were capable of. This was the first time that he brought up the Armenian genocide, though, about our cultural connection of trauma. My therapist has said moving through the sadness was important to healing, but we hadn't talked much about this mountain of grief. I mean, where do you even begin when you're incapable of knowing the start of the story? How do you heal when you don't know the first thing about this particular pain? It's ingrained in a moment of time that has come and gone, unacknowledged by governments and citizens alike. He was right, but today wasn't the day for me to start down that path again. Before you drift off there, is everything okay? I see you're carrying more than usual, Mr. Morton said. Oh yeah, things are okay. It's just my last day at this job, I said curtly. Are you sure? You don't seem your usual self. Do you have something else lined up? He said. Yeah, it's just been a long day. Definitely have some prospects, just trying to sort out what I want to do next. I lied. Not sure I convinced him, but it would have to do. Well, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call, he said, handing over a wrinkled business card from his leather wallet. It had probably been housed there since his retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Tenny, and thank you, Carolyn, for the, first of all, Tenny, it was a great piece, and I can't wait to read the whole thing. I'm sure, you know, the way you ended it, I really want to see what's coming up next. Then our next mentor is Arthur Kaizakyan. He is a poet, editor, and a teacher who lives in California. He was born in Tehran. His family sought political asylum in London when he was 3 years old to escape the Iranian Revolution. He earned his MFA from San Diego State University. He is a contributing editor of Poetry International. His chapbook, My Burning City, was a finalist for the Locked Horn Press Chapbook Prize and Two Sylvia's Press Checkbook Prize. I think this is a dated bio. He has 2 books coming out this year or next year. This, I would say, the next 12 months. He has a couple of books coming out. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Arthur so that he can introduce his mentee, Jen. So Arthur, go for it.
Hey, thank you, Shahid. Hey, everybody. Welcome to IALA's second Emerging Writers Showcase. I'm thrilled to be part of recognizing the next generation of Armenian writers writing in the English language. I've had the privilege of meeting Jen Siraganian, and Siraganian's poems are like finding a lost forest in a mirror, because they're fresh and unexpected in their reflections of reality. It's been an absolute pleasure to explore alternative fields with her in her work. There have been moments of negotiation with language. You know, like, should white space speak for the words, you know, for things that often should go unsaid? At times, the terror in the events within the work, they imitate life in the sense that words cannot console or offer much reparation. So we opt out for more caesura or erasure. Sometimes we've had to like evacuate stanzas, and at other times we've just enjoyed a length of silence that stretches far beyond the page. Sometimes it's been about visibility. There are words that punch. I think you guys will find that her words will punch you, and it'll punch you right where it feels like something is missing. Whether they are tercets, whether she writes in tercets, quatrains, whether it's definition poems, we can feel the weight of the sadness of a pulled self from one country to another. That's all pressed in her work, and it makes her writing undeniable. In many ways, I relate to the emotional centers living in her poems. She carries a sort of estrangement that is familiar to us all as Armenians, assimilated or not. Her work shines. It shines at the edges of identity. The erasure in her work is apparent, and it really derives from a lineage of displaced poets that have come before us, and even living poets, the ancestral poets that we have that are living now that we look up to. Whether she writes about her family suffering rigged with war, her father's home confiscated by the government, her mother's battle with cancer, or her double exiled identity of living as a hyphenated white Armenian, she reveals what is often unseen and captured if we are lucky enough to slow down and not see but perceive. What else can be said of the Los Gatos Poet Laureate, a finalist for the Ruth Lilly Fellowship and Pushcart Prize, Best New Poet of 2016, author of the chapbook Fracture, with poems in Mid-American Review, Smartish Pace, Southwest Review, not somewhere else, but here, a contemporary anthology of women and place. In the words of Terence Hayes, ladies and gentlemen, ghosts and children of the state, it is with great joy I introduce to you Jen Siraganian.
Thank you, Arthur, so much. I don't know what to say. I'm very touched. I really am so grateful, so honored to be a part of this mentorship. To have the experience of working with Arthur has been magical. And I remember I wrote a poem actually about a couple years ago when I went to an Armenian young professional event, and I met someone who said, "Oh, I've never met a writer, especially an Armenian one." And that isolation felt very real. Even when this person said this to me, I laughed, but it felt real. And I had met Armenian writers, and I'd done some events with them in San Francisco in to celebrate in 2015 for the 100-year recognition of the genocide. But I never met an Armenian poet. And so when I met Arthur and we had our first meeting, I was buzzing. The connections, the parallels, the book ideas, my head was just exploding with avenues and places that I wanted to go. So all the poems I'll be reading today are poems that I've written either since the mentorship has begun, or have been revised very, very heavily with Arthur's incredible eye. And they've been transformed. And that is because of Arthur's incredible work. So thank you. The first poem is called Director of the British and Foreign Bible Society, Jerusalem, May 1948, Part 1. Don't tell me I wasn't aware of what could happen when the British pulled out. The telegram, we cannot protect you. Don't tell me what soldiers are capable of. I heard my 8-year-old's hiccuped cries, his beagle poisoned. No place for dogs in war, barks infect the night. Don't tell me I didn't try to protect them. When the Turks rounded up the Armenians, my wife and toddler safe in Ethiopia, until the 1918 flu, you know who died first. Director of the British and Foreign Bible Society, Jerusalem, May 1948, Part 2. We were living up on the 3rd floor, above the first level with the Bibles, leather-bound, encased in window glass. We heard a banging on the door. I started descending, but my wife, the second one, of course, do you know what she did? She ran, stopped me on the 2nd floor landing, my sweater in her arms in case the soldiers questioned me outside, thoughtful, warm with worry. I let her thread my arms into the blue sleeves, allowed her to think she had more than one son. Our child upstairs, how he called out through white dust until we heard soldiers, boys themselves, shout, almost apologize. We didn't know anyone was left. And they marched us to Ramallah, the singed pages hot, floating in the air. This next poem was also written very much inspired by Arthur, really pushing me in these incredible ways to approach some of these topics in a different way, in a fresher way. So this is a poem of me. I was inspired as well by Peter Balakian, who I love, and I decided to try to write from the point of view of sand. Apology from the grains of sand of the Syrian desert, 1915. For Armenians, Der Zor has come to have a meaning approximate to Auschwitz, each in different ways an epicenter of death and a systematic process of mass killing, each a symbolic place, an epigrammatic name on a dark map. Der Zor is a term that sticks with you or sticks on you like a burr or thorn, R-Z, or hard sign, knife-like. Peter Balakian. It was heat we embraced, not deportation, better known as extermination, no gentleness in our grit. How many feet caressed us, the trembled itch of scorpions, the long-legged queen. We parched for water here, all of us. When a grandmother staggered, what could we do but move grain from grain when she fell into a golden indentation? What did we know of the millions that dispersed into air? Each year we sink and sink, our gifts of femurs, clavicles rising to the surface. And this was another poem I wrote this summer. Again, sort of playing with form and sort of trying to, I do really like form, and I do write, as Arthur said, a lot in like tercets and quatrains and all of that. And so I tried to sort of expand it and see what happens. Page 271 from the Glossary of Armenian Terms. Odar. Odar, originating Armenian, noun. One, the other, an outsider, a foreigner. Two, a fading. Three, a disappearance. Four, an animal shape in the sky floating away. Five, a condition when half of your blood is tolerable. Example, you're not an Odar. You can wear a shirt that says the half Armenian. Six, a visitation, being a tourist in your own skin. Seven, a tree half wavering in sun. 8, a canyon so arid you abandon hikes. 9, eyes too blue, skin too dark. 10, an unbuttoning, see Appendix A. 11, words with teeth. 12, the act of recognizing a language when the song is not your own. 13, the quality of a shadow wide enough to consume you. 14, but bright enough to rinse you from a photograph. 15, the quality or state of being unheld. So I have 2 more poems. This second to last one is divided up into 15 parts. It's called Journal for Pomegranates. 1. Armenian brides slam the symbol of fertility against a wall, or myths say they do. The wedding guests mutter, see what blood will spill when your skin splits open. See your future children scattered on the floor, each seed breaking you in their stain. 2. I didn't marry until I was 38. Our wedding theme was mushrooms, not pomegranates. 3. As a child, I sipped candy pink Shirley Temples from tall glasses, 7-Up and grenadine. Grenadine used to be made from pomegranate juice, but now high fructose corn syrup and red 40. 4. Persephone traded 6 months in the underworld for 6 seeds, half her immortal life for a little sweetness. 5. Each morning, seeds rupture beneath my father's thumbs in their inky juice stain. He, stripped to 2 white undershirt, prepare for juice spit splatter. 6. Fruit of the dead, blood erupting from Adonis. 7. I didn't bring children into this world until I was nearly 40. My first son so stuck that Obi pried and pleaded until she had to unpeel me, wrenched him with a vacuum, even after 2 cuts, a capital T across my uterus. 8. Their trees live for over 200 years. 9. 21 months later, back in the same green hospital room, I was tired. January, California fires and another C-section. The nurse, young, pretty, asked if I wanted to give my 11-hour-old son his first bath. I whispered to my husband, let me sleep, let me sleep. 10. The Pomegranate Council in California suggests that it may have been the forbidden fruit of the Garden of Eden, the apple usurped. 11. Awoken by white light glare, my husband calls into the corridor, help, I need somebody in here. And the rush of nurses and blood on the floor, my blood, and the discovery of an IV that the nurse forgot to cap. She was so sorry. Even the hospital manager came in, stay another night, lured me with extra applesauce and graham crackers. 12. Jesus' blood on the palms, this fruit of abundance, this fruit of riches, this pirate's treasure chest of so many seeds. 13. The French term for pomegranate, grenade, has given its name to the military grenade. 14. If pomegranates symbolize the resilience of a country almost extinguished by the genocide, then I, bad Armenian, will admit that when I glanced at my blood halo swelling across hospital floor tiles onto my husband's hands and sons, I didn't fight. I didn't release a flicker of resistance. I, in my juicy ink stain of a body, was depleted. And that shampooed swaddle with cheeks scarlet and fleshy enough to engulf the whites of his eyes was my final fruit to bear. Okay, so one more poem. So because I feel like some of my poems are so intense and heavy, obviously, I wanted to try to bring in a little bit of humor. And so this was trying to incorporate some of these topics, even though it probably isn't even that light at all. This is my final poem, so thank you so much. Self-portrait of second version. I prefer tea to coughing, sleeping to waking. Maybe that's why my death seems innocuous. I wouldn't be American if my father wasn't a Palestinian refugee. I wouldn't have been born if he didn't hire my mother. Unlike my mother, I'm not allergic to scallops, hazelnuts, or buckwheat. Unlike my father, I'm not an immunologist. He's useful during a pandemic. He helped Fauci buy a Persian rug. He could haggle. Of course, his Arabic helped too. I can't write a poem without dropping a name. When Barbara Streisand walked through my dorm, I told her The Prince of Tides was the best film. I'm prone to hyperbole. Israel will never permit me to live in my father's house. That's not an exaggeration. I can visit my grandparents' graves, but only for 90 days at a time. Summers ago, I didn't last 2 weeks. Conflict avoidant, my husband calls me, but I prefer saying that the country wasn't my cup of tea. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen. I can't wait to Google your name and read all the poems that are on the internet. Amazing, amazing stuff. And thank you, Arthur. We are now moving to the second part of our event, the presentation of the Young Armenian Poets. This is a project that is spearheaded by Ellen Semerjian, who is a friend, who's a teacher, musician, poet, and who definitely, passionately runs the Young Armenian Poets Award. We have a video of Ellen, who unfortunately could not be here.
Greetings to all of you who have gathered together in this space for IALA's 2022 Emerging Writers Showcase. Thank you for choosing this event and this moment today. I know we say virtual events are easier to attend than ones in person, and that everyone everywhere can assemble with the click of a button, but you still have to choose and make time for these things. And in a world that demands so much of us just to sustain and serve others and ourselves meaningfully, choosing a literary event such as ours is a big deal. And on that note, I want to commend all of us here today listening in from home now or via recording in the future for choosing to enter and support the 2022 Young Armenian Poets Awards. I've had the pleasure of directing this initiative since its onset and helping set it in motion last year. And I have to say that it is extraordinarily gratifying to see young Armenian writers start the journey in the world. This year's contest asked young Armenian writers to think about the kinds of things they might say to each other if their thinking were to be heard. It was inspired by a terrific poem by Matevosyan, which was a call for connection and conversation. 3 winners chosen by our gracious team of judges, Gregory Janikian, Rafi Joe Wartanian, and Armeniak Nadosyan, turned in work with compelling insight invention, and execution. Their poems, as well as the ones that were not selected this year, are evidence that Armenians around the world have much to say to each other with bravery, compassion, and grace regarding the difficult times that were and the challenges still to come. Thank you to Lusig and everyone at HPEM for making space for their words. On behalf of everyone here at IALA, I present to you the winners of the 2022 Young Armenian Poets Awards. I wish I could be there, but I know readings will be wonderful, and I look forward to hearing them a little bit later. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Alan. And now, without further ado, by the way, all three of the winners are here. The first winner is Ani Apresyan. She will be reading In Memory of the Country We Once Recalled. Ani, the floor is yours.
Hi, it's such an honor to be here today. Just for some background about my poem, it's basically inspired by my entire childhood long struggle between being Armenian, American Armenian, and just American, and kind of figuring out how tied I really am to my culture. You haven't returned home in years, I say with an exasperated tone. And even over the phone, I can hear her lips recoiling, disgusted at the thought of going back to the old country, where we spent our childhoods glowing under a boiling sun that tenderly took care of us and provided us with all we needed in those fleeting moments. For what more is necessary for a child than the succulent apricot's juice running down their giggling lips? But of course, we've grown too old for that now. Our parents packed their entire lives into suitcases filled with aspiration. And somehow, in our youthful innocence, we replaced culture with rapture, pachlava and lamajo morphing all too quickly into cupcakes and Domino's pizza. And we returned. For a while, annual trips during which our once home turned into a tourist destination, the temporarily unyielding strings that used to connect our souls to mulberry murabba, apricots, and tati's cooking, straining under the weight of a new, more developed homeland. Whenever a classmate asked us where we were from, we got tired of answering excitedly, yet still being met with not so witty responses. We no longer mocked them for their ignorance, choosing instead to join in their laughter of such a backwards country. And eventually, assimilative words turned into dismissive actions, forgetting the country that invited us to blossom by watering us with the waves of Sevan, its hands outstretched, gesturing for an unrequited embrace. Weary and wrinkling from centuries of crippling mistreatment and neglect, yet somehow still defyingly, gloriously, perhaps senselessly charitable. We forget how to roll our R's and we plead for takeout instead of dolma wrapped with love. We ask Mama and Papa to please speak in English when my friends are here so that our cheeks don't blush pomegranate red in humiliation. But of course, even in English, their words do not bleat like an American's, their tongues slipping over the bluntness of this foreign language, aching to create the soft and lulling hums of Armenian instead. The tragedies in Armenia turn into someone else's sorrows, a spectacle no more gut-wrenching than the latest celebrity breakup. Our noses become bandaged, our faces beaming with post-rhinoplastic pride. And the blood in our veins becomes Coca-Cola instead of Jermuk. You haven't returned home in years, I say with an exasperated tone. And I understand that this means nothing to her because my home is no longer hers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ani. Beautiful work. Absolutely beautiful. I would like to now invite Juliette Hagobian to read my letter to the missed Armenian. Juliette, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm Juliette Hagobian. I'm 17 years old. And I just want to say how grateful and honored I am to be here and be a part of such an amazing group of writers and creatives. For my piece, I was inspired by the war and turmoil happening in Armenia and Artsakh and how that was directly affecting every Armenian across the globe, whether that was the people in the motherland or people in the diaspora. And this is my piece, my letter to the missed Armenian. Read these words, follow my words, my tongue. I'm sorry, so sorry, that my chance and money are of no aid, that my laughing and heart are of no joy. These cheap dreams give the grass a red ink. I see a stranger wounding dour ankles, extending that pain through my veins to reach yours. Unplucked stems are your legs, stuck in the mud, wasted, exhausted mud. Give me your hands and I'll sing your fingerprints. I'll publish a common book and control the blasts of blanched clouds. Can't I fight this war? Can't I defeat the taunt ill? Work until dawn, choke out the green smoke, stain your uniform with spotted blood. A collapse of knives and servants, how unfortunate. A wife's son given away to the tide of mountain bodies, becoming another stubborn stranger to the depths of another black hole. Scattered like seeds, only your fingers touch roots, and I hear your message from miles away. What can I do? Thank you.
Thank you, Juliette. Very, very powerful words. I would like to invite now Taleen Sahakian, our third and final winner of the Young Armenian Poets Award. Taleen's poem is called The Once Man. Taleen, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to thank everyone here for this wonderful opportunity, and listening to all of your poems and work is really inspiring as well. So my poem is called The Once Man, and I decided to write this poem as sort of a fantasy story about a man walking through the desert that his ancestors once walked on and were forced to walk on with little food and water. And he comes across a creature that he can't quite place. He doesn't know if it's a beast or if it's a man. And he makes a snap judgment at first and tries to avoid this man because he looks uninviting, and most people generally avoid things they don't know when they don't know what they are. So I want to use symbolism to convey my message of how a culture that so values strength and community can be broken down into nothingness and can be torn apart. So the Once Man reiterates the fact that our culture has been torn apart, and this beast of a man is the end product of that. He was once a man, and now he's left with nothing. So I'll read my poem. As I strolled through the shadows of the sand and the rock, I stopped quite suddenly for fear of my life. In the deep, deep mist was a rough-stained creature with eyes black, yet golden with oil and sand and tears. I crept my way around this ill and grimy thing, but as I turned my head to flee, a hand grabbed my arm and cried, my love, oh, where have they taken? My heart fell down the stairs of my chest. I shook my head to say I haven't quite a clue, but maybe she was lost in the night. I sit with the creature now as it keeps me in view, slowly clenching its jaw and taking loud breaths. What are you? I ask. And the creature responds, I am the Once Man, with hands of claw and soul of muck, which were once hand of wild flower and spirit of bees, which with eyes of dried mud that used to be flames, with teeth of stone that were once made of strength, with a heart that was once whole, but is now broken like my people. I am the Once Man, for now I am nothing. What happened? I question. They came and broke us, of course. They steal from you, tore from us, split you up, and slaughtered us. And your love, you said, burned all the love in the world to the ground. And how did you live? I did not, young boy. I'm the Once Man, aren't I? Thank you.
Thank you, Taleen. That was quite moving. And again, I'm speaking as a writer and a teacher. Hearing all three of you here today, it gives me so much hope and joy. I wish when I was your age, I had the courage, not only to write, but to get up in front of a group of people and just read and share what you have written. Kudos to you guys. Really, really, really appreciate your work. continue doing what you're doing. I want to thank the mentors and the mentees for this amazing collaboration that you shared with us. Absolutely amazing. I would like to thank Olivia for her leadership with IALA, Josep and Cyrus for doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes. I want to thank all the writers and the listeners for being with us on a Saturday. Thank you. Become a member of IALA. I can't emphasize that. And finally, I would like to pray for the safety of our brothers and sisters in Armenia. The aggression is real. We just need to make noise as writers, and we need to post things, write to our representatives about what's going on. But again, I am inspired right now, and I'm so happy that we did this today. We definitely will see you next year doing the same thing, getting mentors and mentees gathered in a room with young poets. So until next time, thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Shahe, for running this program. Can everyone unmute and just give all of the writers and poets a round of applause?